Well, I decided to do this little video as an update to my villains list. As I checked out from my villains list, I definitely agree with some of the choices that I have made and the characters that I put on the list. However, looking back at the list, there's only two characters I would want to get rid of in replacement of two other villains that I genuinely hate. So this is going to be a little update to introduce you to two brand new characters that probably none of you have heard of into this little list because I genuinely don't care for these two. Before you ask, no, as bad as these two villains are, they still didn't top Haas. Haas is still the number one most hated villain in my opinion, and I still genuinely despise him no matter what. But even with these two, then even topping Haas, I still don't like them for the way they have been written, the execution, how they've been presented in the game, and all that stuff. So who could these two possibly be? Well, let's talk about my number 10 worst. When I put Hoyt Volker on there, I didn't really agree with the choice. Granted, he's not a great villain, but he's not really that terrible. In fact, I genuinely don't hate him, considering his role as the antagonist is that he's the second villain to be introduced halfway into the game. And honestly, if he was given more screen time or was presented into a different game, he would generally be a great villain. Definitely not as good as Voss, but still passable for what he is. As for my replacement with the number 10 spot, this character I encountered way until after I got done with the list. His name is Salim Koch from Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. This is my number 10 replacement. And pretend like these replacement choices that I'm adding on here are onto the other list. Anyway, what do I hate about Koch? To me, he's one of the weakest villains in the Call of Duty franchise as a whole. For a series that has really great and threatening villains, this guy just sticks out like a sore thumb. For one thing, he isn't really that threatening or interesting as an antagonist. We don't know much about his backstory. All we know is that he's the admiral of this powerful ship called the Olympus Mons. That's basically it, unless I have to look up more stuff about him. But that's the general case, and he doesn't really impact the plot very much or heavily, considering that he's not really that huge of a target we're hunting down throughout the game, and he only makes his ship presence in 3 parts of the game: the beginning, halfway, and near end. He's not present in most missions, and he doesn't even come off as a good villain. He talks to you through a monitor screen, which is kind of lame and boring if you ask me. Sure, Halo Infinite did that with Escharum, but at least Escharum was a huge importance to the plot throughout most of the game. Koch literally has nothing important to him. His dialogue may seem fine, but this character only has 8 minutes of screen time, and he barely does a whole lot that would be threatening or interesting, and even when he does, it's really not that huge of an impact, considering how great the characters are in this game. The villain just downright sucks. Even his death was anticlimactic. You just stab him in the neck, unlike with the other satisfying finishers you brought to the other villains. What's even more embarrassing about this guy's death is if you just literally do nothing, he just straight up dies. That's basically it. And that's not even the end of the game. You have one more mission to go through after you beat him. So what exactly is the point of this guy to exist in the plot other than to just, I don't know, not really matter that much? Anyway, this dude generally sucks. He's my number 10 replacement. So, congratulations, Hoyt. You're no longer my number 10 hated villain. That's how it goes to Salim Koch. But now we move on to the second villain that I genuinely hate much more. You might be surprised at this, but I'd rather replace this guy over Imperator X on my list. You might be confused to why. Ix sucks, I get it. He's a boring generic warlord, he's an uninteresting villain, he doesn't have a good backstory, and his boss fights downright suck. But there is one itsy bitsy little issue with Ix. You see, I haven't played Sonic Chronicles. I only took the word of other people saying that Ix downright sucks. That's it. I haven't seen what the character really is, or what he's like, aside from looking at videos. Granted, some people have ranted about characters before that they say downright sucks, but I'm taking their word for it, and I'm only seeing it on the screen of what they're showcasing. Which is why I didn't put Malekith on my list, because I don't know what the dude is like, and I haven't seen the movie. I want to experience the villain myself, rather than taking the word of other people and just saying, oh, he downright sucks because everyone else says that he's terrible. And I definitely see why he downright sucks. He's not that interesting of a villain, and that's where we can come into agreement. But if I want to say that he downright sucks, I would have to experience him as well, and get the true understanding to see if I genuinely will hate this villain, or just find him to be, like, bad but not as completely terrible. That being said, this villain that I experienced almost had the same functionalities as Ix. And that is my next new replacement for Imperator Ix is the Crawler from Fable 3. Yeah, not Lucian, the Crawler. For one thing, what kind of a name is that for a villain? The Crawler? He doesn't even crawl. You might be surprised I would pick him over Lucian. Yeah, Lucian has a terrible boss fight, it's bland and boring, but at least Lucian had a huge importance to the plot. The Crawler has nothing. For one thing, that design of him is generic. Like, what am I looking at? A mix of Venom and Scarecrow? What? And second of all, we don't even know much about this guy's backstory. Apparently it's been mentioned, since I have to look this up, that he's the Corruptor's lieutenant who came into existence ever since the Spire blew up from Fable 2, because of the choices that we made. So the darkness has risen in, yada yada, and he's just chilling out on some island. Literally hiding on an island for a long time. There must be some huge backstory, but you would have to look it up since it doesn't get explained. And this guy that I'm going to mention has the same similarities as Ix. He's barely in the game for a huge chunk of the playtime. Yeah, he doesn't make an appearance for like most of the game. Fable 3 is so short to play through. It's one of the shortest games ever. You could just beat this in one day, and since the plot focused around you trying to dethrone your evil brother and building up a revolution, this guy was just tossed in at the last minute, and the reason why your brother has been breaking promises and became an evil tyrant is because he's building up huge cash to prevent the darkness from destroying Avalon. Yep, that's why. All of that, just so he can prevent the darkness from killing everyone, which, by the way, once you become king, it will attack in about a year. Seems reasonable enough. But as his role as the villain, he's not even in the game for a huge chunk of the playtime, and he comes off as this generic character that only talks with taunts and everything, and only been scaring Walter, and does he even try to fight? Like, why doesn't he try to scare you? Why is he scaring Walter? What's so special about him? Don't you want to take care of the bigger threat? And then he doesn't even try to, like, do anything else after you get saved by a bunch of other people after that desert run-in with him. And then up until the end of the game, you get to the final battle, his army's already attacking. This final section felt rushed. And the only positive thing that he has over Ix is his boss fight, which exists. Actually, you're not even fighting him, you're fighting him possessing Walter. That's not even that interesting. What's really ridiculous about his death is, after you beat Walter, he just poofs out of existence forever. seriously, he's not even talking while Walter's on his dying breath. He just disappears out of it. Like, what's the point of this villain? He barely does anything. He has no impact to the plot. He just exists because why not? We need another generic darkness villain. And his design downright sucks. He doesn't even have, like, an interesting boss fight. So, why toss him into this game? Couldn't you guys wait until, like, the next game? And you're probably wondering what happened with Logan. He surrenders after you build up your army for a revolution. I was expecting an epic fight, but he's like, oh, I surrender. Yeah, I give up. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Fable games. Like, literally, ever since the first game, Fable games just tend to have very generic, bland, and uninteresting villains. Like, what happened? Jacob Blaze managed to be one of the best villains in the series, and then you guys flopped with the later villains. So, the Crawler is my new replacement for Imperator X. He doesn't matter much to the plot. He doesn't need to exist in the game at all. You guys could have waited, but since Fable 3 was such a bad game, Fable 4 got cancelled, and they aren't gonna make it ever again. So, what? Anyway, that's my new replacements. I genuinely don't like the Crawler. He doesn't need to exist in the plot. He didn't need to be in the game. Get rid of him. He's just like Imperator X. Except managed to be even worse than X in my opinion. At least X was only present in a non-canon game. The Crawler managed to be present in a canon game that's connected to the mainline series. So, yeah, that's my new replacement. And for those who are wondering, in doing Koch's number 10, the Crawler is at my replacement for X, and every other villain is fine where they are in my list. So, congratulations, Haas, you still remain as one of the worst villains in video game history. Round of applause, loser. Anyway, that's gonna be the end of this little video right here. And I just wanted to mention these two and get this out of the way. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Until next time.